Hi, good day. I am Mary Crystal Agladove, and for today's video, I'm gonna talk about what I have learned in this subject, the Philippine indigenous communities. So as humans, we exist in different spaces and identities. Indigenous people play an important role in environmental protection. So they actively combat harmful practices such as deforestation and pollution of sacred lands. So in my own way, there are a variety of attributes a person can have. So most of these attributes exist as a spectrum to break the stigma towards the indigenous people. So one of the many practical steps to push for recognizing the rights of indigenous people is to build public awareness. Well-informed mass education and awareness raising are essential to the realization of the rights of the indigenous peoples. So this is everyone's responsibilities. Support indigenous people to protect their lands from destructive and exploitative practices. Indigenous resistance is a key component of the environmental movement here. So tribal people are on the front lines of the climate crisis. So protecting the most vulnerable areas and their water, animals, and the people. So being an ally to indigenous people means that we recognize their centuries of resistance and stand alongside them as they fight to protect their lives and also for the planet. So in this subject, I have learned what is indigenous people or who are they. They refers to the descendants of the natives of a certain areas before the colonization. So IPs are technically people who were able to preserve and maintain their cultural practices, customs, traditions, and beliefs before the colonization and were able to pass it down from their descendants up to this day. So because of the constantly changing world, there is a tendency that indigenous people will distance themselves from the majority group. So in order to preserve their practices and beliefs and pass them on the future generations. Indigenous people also value their ancestral land inherited from their ancestors. So why is it important for them? So for them, their land and resources are necessary for the practices. So it is used to develop, protect, and maintain their culture, the rituals, and religion practices. So, traditional means of farming and fishing, they rely on the resources provided from their land for survival. So, since they distance themselves from the majority, it makes them a minority. Since people emulate other cultures are being deculturized or what we call acculturation. So, in this subject also, I have learned why is it essential to study the indigenous people? That is because to raise awareness for indigenous people of their experiences and situations. I also learned that there are many indigenous people in different areas in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. So in region 1 is also known as the Ilocos region, and it is located in the northwestern part of the Philippines. So the indigenous people in this region are known as the Ilocano people. So the Ilocano people are believed to be one of the earliest settlers in the Philippines. And they have a rich cultural heritage that includes traditional dances, music, and craft. While in Region 2 in the Philippines, it is also known as the Cagayan Valley, and it is a home to several indigenous people including the Agtagadang, the Ibanag, the Isanay, and the Itawes. So also for the Region 3, also known as the Central Luzon, it is also the home for Aita, or Aita are the group or is a group of indigenous people who traditionally live in the mountainous area of the Central Luzon, as well as the other parts of Luzon and the Visayas. So they are known for their hunting and gathering practices, as well as their handicrafts and weaving. So aside from the Aita, we have the Aita Magbukon, Aita Abilen, Sambal, and the Kapampangan. So in Calabar Zone or Region 4, it is a home also for different indigenous communities, including the Tagbanwa, Mangyan, Dumagat, Aita, and the Ibaloy. So moving on to Mimaropa, it is a region in the Philippines composed of the island provinces of Mindoro Occidental and Mindoro Oriental, and also Marinduque, Romblon, and Palawan. And the region is also a home to different indigenous communities and its people. And it includes the Tagbanwa Batak, Hanunuo, Ratagnon, Romblomanon. So in Bicol region in the Philippines or Region 5, it is also a home to different indigenous people, namely the Agta Albay, Bicol Buhinon, Etneg, Reconada, Bicol. In Region 6, or also known as Western Visayas, it is composed of 6 provinces. So the region is also a home of different indigenous people, including the Ati, the Bukidnon, Panay Bukidnon, the Iraynon Bukidnon, the Ata, the Kinaraya, the Suludnon. So for Region 7 also known as the Central Visayas, and it is composed of 4 provinces, which is Bohol, Cebu, Negros, and Siquijor. And this region also comprised of different beautiful indigenous peoples, which include the Eskaya, the Tagbanwa, the Ate, Bukidnon, and the Tumandok. So for the Region 8, or also known as the Eastern Visayas, it is composed of 6 provinces. And just like the other region, it is also the home for different indigenous communities, including the Waray, the Abaknon, the Batangao, the Kalbayog Samar, and the Lirongan. And lastly, let's go to Mindanao. So Mindanao is the home of the Lumad, or the Lumad is the generic term used to refer to the indigenous people of Mindanao. So they are considered to comprise the largest number of indigenous people in the country. So the 16 groups that compose the Lumad includes Subanen, Blaan, Tibuli, Mandaya, Mansaka, Tinuray, Hiligaynon, Manobo, Bagobo, Bukidnon, Tagakaulo, Obo, Banwaon, Kalagan, Dibabawon, Talaandig, Mamanwa, and Manguangan. So also I have learned the roles of indigenous people language. So also I have learned the roles of indigenous people language. An indigenous people's language can be defined as simply as a language spoken uniquely by a group of people who affiliates with a particular indigenous group and or with origin with the particular group. So there are 13 indigenous languages in the Philippines that are considered to be in trouble. So for example, the Mangyan syllabic script, and also the Tagbanwa syllabic script. So the indigenous people literature provides different functions in the indigenous people community. So it may be simply be intended as a form of entertainment during the ordinary days and special occasions. However, it is also served as a non-material artifact that contains the group's history. So, in the contemporary times, there are narrations of the struggles of the indigenous peoples group to assert the right of self-preservation and self-determination. Thus, the indigenous people literature serve as a vehicle of cultural transmission to the future generations of the indigenous people of a particular customs, belief, and practices. And the primary role of this literature is the preservation and the conservation of the identity of the indigenous people as a distinct and a unique group. And I think that would be all for tonight. Thank you so much for listening.